Are you looking to master your track in the style of Bad Omens, Asking Alexandria, or Bring Me the Horizon? Well, you've come to the right place. In this video, I'm going to master a metalcore, modern metal style track from start to finish in my DAW. The song I'm going to be using is from my band Sight Received. The song is called Exposed, and I'm going to be showing my mastering chain that I used on this release track in this video. Key with metalcore style masters is really getting an aggressive, loud, upfront mix, but not too distorted so that the listener has tons of clarity, and then getting those tracks to fit with the other tracks on the EP. If you're looking to get better at improving your mixes in your home studio, you should hit the like button down below and subscribe to the channel. If you want to work with me personally on your music to improve it in your home studio, you can contact me in the description down below. Now let's get into this track and I'll show you the plugin chain I use to get this loud, punchy sounding master. Okay, so I'm in my DAW session now. I have a number of tracks in here actually. I have the initial reference that I used for referencing this track, The Enemy, which was the first single released from our band. And then this is the track I brought in that was recorded later that I'm trying to get this master to match the sound of this master. So what I'm going to do here is play this initial song, The Enemy, to give you an idea of what I'm shooting for with the master. This is the final product I got in terms of matching this master, so it all goes on the same EP. It all sounds good and cohesive. That's the final product I got. What I'm going to do is disable all the plugins. I'll walk you through every step of the chain. I know it seems like a lot of plugins, but a lot of them are very subtle changes. When I first got the initial mix, it was just a little too hot. It wasn't clipping or anything. I just brought it down about 3.5 dB because I wanted a lot of headroom to work with the master in terms of adding EQ and things like that. So the first EQ move I came in with was a Reaper stock EQ. What I did was actually dip out some 1 to 2K information. There was just a little bit too much there. And I added some sub and low mid information just to give the track a little more weight and beef. And then I sloped off the top a little bit there. Sometimes you can see there's a lot of cues here. Sometimes what I'm trying to do is I get the master to a finalized stage, but then I'll come back to the initial EQ and just make some subtle changes to get it to match the track that I'm referencing. Remember, these are all going on the same EP. I don't want it to be jarring for the listener to experience one track to the next. I really want them to feel cohesive and feel like that they're all part of the same project, because they are. Next, I came in with Reaper stock saturation, 14%, so that's really, really subtle. You see those track changes are subtle, but they're adding some clarity, some excitement to the entire mix. And then I came in with KHS stereo here. I added 17% of width. With these stereo width plugins, you really want to be careful about not adding too much. For example, if I did this, the track really starts to sound weird and phasey after a moment. So 17%, that's about as far as I'll push it. I just want it to get exciting and sound wide. Then I came in with the multi-band compressor. What this is doing is it's really taming down some of the sub information. And then whenever the vocal gets peaky in some of these areas in the mid-range or the guitars, cymbals also live in that range. I want to make sure that it's kind of batting those down, keeping those from getting too loud. So you can see overall what those are doing, just keeping the whole track reined in to a degree. Then I'm using fresh air, 2% on the mid-air and high air, but it's just adding a subtle little lift to the entire track. So you can just see slowly we're adding clarity, we're adding excitement to the track. And because this is an aggressive metal track, I'm not really afraid to make some drastic decisions such as bring in a soft clipper limiter. And what a soft clipper is going to do, just take those very top transients of your mix, cut them off. But like I said, it's a soft clipper, so in a soft way. So it's not hard clipping it. It's not completely getting rid of transients. But what it's doing, especially with the kick and snare drum, it's just kind of bringing those in, reeling those in, so that you have an easier time coming in with limiters and things like that because you're not dealing with super spiky transients. You see that's doing 1 dB boost there. Then I come in with the L1 stereo limiter, and this is doing a subtle amount of limiting. Just bringing the volume up as I come in with something like Ozone and then the FGX2, which are really going to do a lot of the heavy lifting volume-wise. This is what our master sounds like now. This is what we're trying to achieve, so to speak. We've still got a ways to go. That track is way louder, but we're starting to get there with some subtle moves here. Your find yourself having to make too drastic of moves, like 5 dB EQ boosts, crazy amounts of compression, there's something wrong that happened in the mixing stage. Just if it's your own music, go back, make those changes. If you had a mixing engineer and you have a good relationship with him, just maybe ask him, hey, can you turn the snare down a bit? Hey, the vocal is too quiet. Something like that. I think that's a much better route to go than trying to fix it in the mastering stage with your limited ability in terms of having just a 1-2 track. So now I'm going to come in with Ozone, which I like to use on masters. It's kind of my backstop to kind of make sure everything is smoothed out. I'm using a lot of this tone match feature, and I brought in that master I'm trying to match actually as the EQ curve that it's referencing. So I came in with Ozone 10. You can hear that's doing a lot. It's doing a little bit of dynamics and width matching, but mostly with this tone control, I'm able to get it to much more like my initial master. So instead of me trying to figure out and do a million different EQ moves with RIA EQ, Ozone is just going to subtly match that entire track to the track you're shooting for. You don't want to go too overboard with this, or you're actually going to throw off the balance of your track because you're making too many EQ moves, but it's just smoothing out that curve and adjusting it in a way that it's going to match that other track. This track. We're getting very, very close. Now it's finally time to come in with the volume adjustments. FGX2 really is going to be my go-to when adding volume, mostly because it's just a very simple plugin to use. I come in with the gain control. I set the volume ceiling at -0.6 for this track, and I'm shooting for around -8 LUFS. I also have it on, I think I tried the punchy preset initially. Detail and transients as well, trying to preserve as much of the dynamic as transients as possible when I come in to add all this volume, because the last thing you want to do is just squish all the transients out and make the track sound really flat. Now we've got a complementary track to the reference that I'm shooting for. And if I go back and forth here, very similar. So I've achieved my goal. When these tracks go back to back on an EP, they're going to sound very similar. The listener's not going to be jarred by that at all. And I come in with a final safeguard here. I have a VU meter. I'm just checking to make sure the levels are exactly the same. So I'm going to be looking at the RMS level. Looks like around -9, -10. When I look at this track, looks to be around the same level. So we've achieved that in terms of matching it for volume, tonality, width. And the last thing I do with my masters actually is do a bit of automation volume-wise. So you can see here I've done some volume pre-FX, because you don't want to do it post-FX because you're already slamming it up to the limit in terms of your max dB, right? -0.6. So I don't want to make moves there. So making moves before it hits the limiter. And all I did here was just add some volume boosts whenever a main riff comes in, whenever a chorus comes in. I dropped it during some of the verses, and this is very subtle. I'm talking about 0.5 dB. You don't want to do 5 dB swings here. You should have been doing a lot of that automation in the mix already. But for the master, it's very, very subtle changes. And from this build heading to this breakdown, I really want a drastic volume change.
Now you're exposed!
Feels bigger when all that comes in. Same thing with the final chorus. There's a bit of a volume build from the crash out into the final chorus.
You
hear that subtle addition of volume there. And really, because the breakdown is so important to a genre like metal or metalcore, you want it to sound big. You don't want it to sound smaller than what came before it.
are exposed!
So there you go. Those are my tips for mastering a metalcore modern metal style track. I think I got it sounding pretty good and pretty close to the reference. The key is really subtle changes with EQ, some tone shaping, and then adding volume, loudness, and punch to get it to sound up front. You could also bring in a couple other references that you were trying to match from, different genres or different bands. I was matching kind of to my own band because we were releasing an EP, but before that, the track at the top of my session, that was the initial track I was trying to reference to, and then all my other references are kind of based on that. I know that sounds confusing, but it's really not. It's just really sort of a chain of references to make sure everything sounds cohesive. So if that was helpful, leave a comment down below. If you have any questions, leave a comment down below. What is your mastering approach with this genre? A lot of ways to approach it. This is just the way I approach it. You can check out the track in the description box down there as well if you want to listen to my final track version. If you want to work with me, you can check out the description down there below. And anyways, I'll see you guys next time.